Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sinead Says Podcast. Welcoming Josh Landmann today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, so that surprised you there that I went straight into that?
I know, yeah, it did, yeah.
Yeah, just getting
I
used
thought
to it,
I thought you were just like testing.
No testing, straight in. So we have Josh here today. Josh is a good friend of mine. He is an aspiring, I'm just going to say you're like a Paralympian.
Not yet, but will be.
Yeah, but I feel like we need to manifest it. Because you almost made
Hopefully.
it. You almost made it last time, but this year we're going to see you in Paris at the Paralympics. And you're also a triathlete.
I'm a triathlete, yes.
Yeah. And you are currently over in Australia here training for a load of races.
A race in Tasmania in March.
Yes. So we just discovered, we were trying to remember how long we knew each other. So I think I've known you since maybe, it must have been 2013.
Yeah,
2012, because Josh suffered a spinal injury in 2014. So I'd met you before that, and then I'd met you after. I was very confused about the whole thing, but we're going to get into that as well.
We will do.
We will get into
Definitely.
that. So hello and welcome to the show. How are you feeling? How are you enjoying Australia?
I love it so far. I've only been here for 2 weeks now, maybe less, under 2 weeks. But yeah, I love it. The way of life is great.
Yeah, we were at the beach today.
And I love it because my sport takes me outside and cycling and swimming, and it's great to be by the sea. And
I know, because I was like trying to go for a swim, and you were like, "Oh, I've swam so much today."
Just been in a pool for an hour and a half. I don't want to go for another swim.
But you got in.
I did,
in. But you're here today because you have an inspiring story. Now, if anyone's ever been to any of my talks, I do talk about you in my speeches.
Oh, that's kind.
I know, yeah. I actually think I've wrote about you in my book as well. I can't even remember
if
it's my book. But anyway, it's just like you're such an inspiring person because you did suffer a tragic accident. But what I've seen from that accident up until now is this amazing positive mental attitude of resilience, strength, and it just makes me think, how can we sit here whenever you're sitting there with the biggest smile on your face? So even talking to you today about where you are in your life, I'm just like, you are literally like a ray of fucking sunshine, and you have so much to teach people.
Thank you.
So let's go back to, before the accident and where you were and, how old you were. And I'm just interrupting this podcast to talk about our amazing sponsors, BetterHelp, who have sponsored the Sinead Says podcast from day one. And you all know how much I love therapy and vouch for it all the time. It has been completely life-changing for me. It has really upped my game. And for me, it just really helped me with my performance, my self-belief, setting boundaries to be the most successful person that I can be. And it's also really helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. And it just empowers you to be the best version of yourself. So BetterHelp is convenient, flexible, affordable, and all online. And all you need to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and find a time that suits you. So to get 10% off your first month, just visit betterhelp.com/Sinead. That is betterhelp.com/Sinead.
Yeah, so I had my accident when I was 20, but I'd almost set my life out from the age of 16, doing my GCSEs. I almost set out most of my GCSEs to lead me into my A-levels of what I wanted to do then, and A-levels to pretty much lead me into the university course that I wanted to do, which was automotive and transportation design. And I got on that course at Coventry University. So I was a very artsy person, loved to draw, design stuff on the computer, Photoshop, all sorts of different other softwares and things, and then build things. And I was just so fascinated by cars and boats, and just mainly cars and boats, but transport. So that, but then I also got inspiration from my design technology teacher, who would design stuff for TVR, and for those car lovers would know what car brand TVR is. And I was just fascinated to almost how do I get into that industry? So I just spent a lot of time questioning him, and he gave me a lot of ideas of design courses to go on, and one of them was this one at Coventry University, which was world renowned. So it was a great course, or one of the best courses in the UK, if not the best one to get onto, which was a massive target of mine. But I always wanted to take a year out after my A-levels, which is what I did, and then enjoyed myself because I wanted that break from
I see you enjoy yourself a few times. We enjoyed ourselves on a few nights out and
we did
stuff like that. So was in that time then that the accident happened? So in this time, because I seen you on a period, because you know I used to live in Magaluf, some of you know. I had all those party seasons, and Josh would always show up, and you were a bit of like a wee like DJ groupie too, weren't you?
a DJ.
The DJ groupie, because you always come with the DJs.
Yeah.
You always come with all the guys from Blackpool and all.
I just have all my mates.
Yeah, and they would always come and like they would just come and wreck the place. Not like joking. Well, sometimes. Lots of Jaeger bombs. But anyway, so you were kind of living in your life for this year out, and you were coming in between. You were going to Ibiza and you were going to Mallorca.
So we went, we were kind of like to and from, but then I had my accident in Ibiza that year. But I will just say before I had my accident, I was a very like sporty person anyway. I loved sport. My parents got me into it from a very young age.
Yeah.
God, like football, swimming, cricket. I used to race motocross, cycling, all sorts.
Yeah.
So I loved it. But yeah, so this is kind of like almost like what led me to have the drive to where I get to now. Although I wanted to take a completely different life path to sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had my accident in Ibiza. And every time I say it, it's quite funny because I was even in the pool the other day.
Right.
Just speaking to this elderly group, and they were asking me they were just very upfront, like, why are you in a wheelchair, blah, 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 what have you done? And I told them, I dived into a pool, and everybody just goes, where? So I told them Ibiza, and they just like start laughing and go, oh, so you were drunk, weren't you?
And I've asked you that too.
But that's like the natural response from everybody when you say, oh yeah, dived into a pool and broke my neck and I was in Ibiza, because you associate Ibiza just with partying and drinking and everything. But don't get me wrong, I'd had a few drinks during the day, but nothing that was ever going to make me do anything stupid. And I've never been just like stupid-minded or anything like that. I would just do anything silly to put me in any form of like risk. It was just a freak accident, and we'd been out during the day and we'd gone back to the villa, and I was starving, and it was quite late at night, and where we were was pretty rural. So there was nothing really around for us to get. So I started cooking on the barbecue, and nobody else wanted to cook. So I was just like, right, well, I'll do it. So I was sat in front of this barbecue for hours cooking, and people had gone down to the pool. So I'm sat there in the middle of summer. It's red hot anyway. I'm sat in front of a barbecue, which is double hot as well. And I wanted to go like down to the pool to cool off, and I wanted to spend time with my mates. And yeah, it was just one of those things. I dived in, and it wasn't anything spectacular. Well, it certainly wasn't anything spectacular anyway. But I just went straight down and I hit my head directly on the bottom of the pool. Yeah. And I knew I'd done it, but it didn't hurt. And I carried on swimming to the other side of the pool to where the ladders were.
Oh, what? You
as normal.
Swimming? As
normal, yeah. And then when I'd grabbed the ladders with both hands, I naturally wanted to put my feet onto the steps, but I couldn't do it. So I was like, it was a bit weird. And then
so it wasn't painful?
No, it wasn't painful at all.
It's just a bang to
I just
the
didn't
head?
know what I'd done. I'd done. So then I felt like down, and I could feel everything, but with my hands. But then my touch, my sensation through my legs was very, very numb. Yeah. And it felt like my legs were like triple the size of what they were just because of the numbness. And a few of my mates were like sat around the pool, and I was saying to them, like, lads, I can't move my legs. I can't move them. And they were like, no, can we swear on it or not?
Yeah, swear away.
So they were like, no, fuck off, get off.
Yeah.
Come on, get yourself out, stop lying. But obviously they said it a little bit more strongly. Then I was like, no, seriously, I can't move my legs. So they got me out, and I genuinely couldn't move my legs. So they just led me on the side of the pool. And then one of my mates noticed that I was bleeding from the head. So I don't think I'd fully split my head open, but I had a big cut on it. And he hates blood. So he instantly walked away to get some towels and let somebody else deal with the blood. Yeah. And what is quite funny, I was trying to explain it to them all, and I had one of them, my feet were still hanging over the edge of the pool. One of them had my toes in his mouth, was like biting on my feet. And I was like, no, I can't feel that. And my other mate was like leathering my leg, whacking it as hard as he could. I couldn't feel it. Obviously I could feel it, but it wasn't hurting. Yeah. But in my head, I'm kind of going through all these different sort of like mental states of like, shit, what am I going to do in my life now? And then the next thing of, like, I'm just dead happy and laughing with everybody else, and then I'd go back into like a bit more of a negative state.
Shock, yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, it's just shock. I'll be fine. Give me 5 minutes. Be back up on my feet. It's fine. never would I have thought that I'd suffered a spinal cord injury. Like we get taught about it through school, your body, and if you break your neck or your back, it can cause like some pretty serious injuries. But like you never think it's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And generally when people say you break your neck, like they say, oh yeah, you're pretty close to death, because obviously all your everything from your brain, all your signals runs through there. And I almost kind of explain it as like a tree trunk, your spinal cord. So it comes from your brain, and it's like the bottom of a tree trunk, so the thickest part of it, and then it spans. A tree obviously spans up, but your spinal cord spans out, and then all your nerves just kind of, the further down, they just spread out. So it's like all the branches and then to twigs and stuff like that. But I damaged up so high that it's kind of like cutting a lot of the nerves to the rest of your body. But fortunately for me, I have an incomplete spinal cord injury, which means I've got like, well, I can move my hands. Usually it's kind of, if you break your neck, it's kind of from where you break down is affected. So I've got a pretty good hand function, and I can stand a bit, I can walk a bit. So I got away with it quite luckily to an extent, but you've still got to live with it.
Yeah. And like the first time I seen you, you were kind of still on the crutches, and we were talking about this before, that you had like a little bit too much pride to like really, because the injury itself is cutting off your nerves and your leg, but your legs are kind of functioning where if you want to walk into somewhere, you can just walk in there, but it does cause you a lot of strain, pain, cramps.
Yeah, I get a lot. Do you know what? It's when I can wake up on one day and feel great, and I can wake up on another day and feel awful and have to like be in my chair all day. But what does make a massive difference is weather. That's why I love it here.
That's what I kept saying to him. I was like, look, it's nice and warm. You feel great.
So yeah, it makes a massive difference. And when I've explained it to my mum before of how it feels, it's like she's got osteoarthritis in her wrist. But when I've explained it to her, she's almost said it's like, it sounds like quite similar. But yeah, it can be waking up on the day and all sorts of different things that affect it, and whether I'm good or bad. But as we were talking earlier, and I was telling you about, I was quite stubborn and naive to thinking like what my body can do now. Certainly like my legs, because a lot of my muscle groups don't function as they probably should do. So my joints don't get all the support that they need. And for ages, I didn't want to use it. I wanted to be able to walk around a golf course again. I thought, oh yeah, I might be able to go and eventually. This is what I was going in my head. I was like, right, what I'll do is I'll start doing all my walking in physio, and then what I'll do is I'll start walking around a golf course. You just go and walk around an 18-hole golf course straight after a spinal cord injury, don't you? Like, it's a long way. And then from there, I'll be able to progress on, and might be able to run. Yeah. But this is all things that go through my head. Being naive to it, to actually what I will be able to and won't be able to do. Yeah.
And like, when was that moment? Like, because you went from the side of the pool thinking I'm in shock to maybe being in the hospital and someone saying, no, this is very serious. And like, you didn't have a sore neck. You didn't feel like it was broke, or you were just in shock.
So when I was in hospital, they never said that I would never walk again. Okay. I think because of the sensation and stuff that I have got and the mobility I've got from a neck break. Yeah. And obviously they almost kind of got to do that to cover themselves, because if I don't know if you can then go into like suing cases or whatever from that. So they've almost got to be a bit careful. But there's all these cases that happen now where people get told they'll never be able to walk again. And then they go away and do all this work and this rehab, and they can. So I think I just had it in my mind of like, whatever happens. Yeah. If I can walk again, if I can eventually start running again, then brilliant. Yeah. But I never really got to that point of just counting on that to make myself happy. It was just like, I just got to deal with it and crack on. And that's like ultimately how I'm going to make myself happy, if I just be happy with myself and my life. So that's what I focused on. And then you had so much like resilience. Like, you have like the best bounce back rate ever. There's like 2 weeks, you said. Can I remember you chatting about this in the Ellen show as well, because you were on the Ellen DeGeneres show. Yeah, that was a bit crazy. I know, that was a bit mental, wasn't it? Very like starstruck when I hate watching that video. Oh, do you know why? Oh, no, I hate it. I remember being like, what? There's Josh. Yeah, because I just feel like when I first got there, it was like, I was actually dead cool. Oh yeah, feel fine. And then when you get called up, it was just different.
Yeah, shitting yourself.
Yeah, probably.
Well, you're not shitting yourself now in the Sinead Says.
I've got over that earlier.
Okay. Oh, I'm not as good. Fucking hell. Right. Okay. So yeah. So basically, you had these like 2 weeks. I'm sure you were in a negative mindset at this point because you'd probably realized you had less function than when you were, and like as you said, you had your life planned out. And what do you think pulled you out? Because I've never met a more accepting person to all the cards you've been dealt. Do you know what I mean? You never sat there in your own negative thought pattern. You never sat there and were like, why me? You were like, okay, what can I do with this?
Yeah, I think so. For those 2 weeks, because I got airlifted to Mallorca for my surgery, and it was amazing hospital, and the treatment that they gave me and the care was absolutely fantastic. And I'm almost like happy. I said this to you. I'm happy that I had my accident where I did.
Yeah.
But what was difficult was almost probably the language barrier. Some of the nurses could speak English. Some of the nurses were fantastic. I mean, all nurses were fantastic, but some of them could speak English, so it was a lot easier to obviously communicate. Certainly when I couldn't have family or friends visiting because those hours were strict. I think I could see them for like an hour a day, maybe, like visitors.
Yeah.
Because I was in, I think because the specific spinal ICU was full, they put me in the cardio one. So I don't know whether or cardiac one, I don't know whether the visiting times were more strict or what, but obviously they had to stick by the rules. So yeah, I could only see friends or family for an hour a day, and it could only be, I think, 3 of them in the room at once. And it was, do you know, whilst I was there, it was crazy the amount of people that were there that could come and visit me. I had school friends from Germany. There was a massive group of them, maybe like 10 to 15 of them that were on the island on holiday at the time that I was there. So my mum and dad drove to pick up 3 of them and brought them. They came to see me, which was amazing. I still speak to them now and see them every trial, bar COVID. We see each other every year. Yeah. Make the effort to like go to Germany or come to the UK. And then just the friendship group that I had that I was on holiday with me. Obviously, some of my friends are there pretty much every week. So whenever they were there, they would come and visit. So I was very fortunate that I could still see my friends rather than just kind of having parents there, which is obviously great. Yeah. But sometimes you can speak to your friends in like about different things and in different ways. So it's just kind of that mental side of it that helps if you're speaking to different people about different things. So when they weren't there and it was just the nurses, it was a little bit difficult. It was quite difficult. Yeah. One thing I do like saying was when I was in there, I used to get these really, really weird feelings on through my legs and my feet that they needed rubbing. Yeah. So I'd always press, certainly when my parents or friends were in there, I'd press my emergency button and they'd come like running in. Like, what's wrong? And I'd be like, can you rub my feet? So like when they come in, they'd just be like, are you kidding? Yeah. But then they would stand there for like 5-10 minutes and rub my feet. Yeah. So they were great, but yeah, those 2 weeks were pretty difficult. So it was 2 full weeks you were in there any longer? Yeah, two and a half weeks or something like that. So I caught a bit of pneumonia whilst I was there, so that then delayed like my transfer back to the UK, which was a bit frustrating, but can't help it. How'd you say? Can't just control get on with it, Josh. Yeah. So yeah, and then from there they flew me back to the UK, and then I went into Royal Preston Hospital for another 2.5 weeks, just because they then had to check all the surgery that they'd done was good enough. Good. So if it wasn't, they would then have to like redo the surgery and stuff like that. But fortunately, it was good enough that didn't have to do that, and it wouldn't put me back a bit more. So yeah, and then from there, I went to Southport Spinal Unit, and then that's when it all started. What? Rehab. Learning how to push a wheelchair, learning how to drive like with hand controls. They'd take you through everything, like learning how to cook. Yeah. In a kitchen that's not accessible, and how you would transfer things and different things and all sorts of stuff. They'd introduce you back into like different sports. And was it hitting you then? Was that when it was hitting you like, I'm going to be in a chair, I'm going to be... Yeah, I accepted it. When I got to, I think it was when I probably got to Preston, and I still was bedbound in Preston. Yeah, I accepted it. And I don't know how or why I accepted it so quickly. And I was explaining this is something else I was explaining to you earlier. Yeah. I just don't understand how I'm able to just like click my fingers and be like, yep, that's all right.
Yeah.
Crack
And
on.
like, but it's the same, it's like solution based thinking as well. Like when you're dwelling on negative thoughts, it does absolutely nothing for you. Like you could sit there and dwell, and yes, you have every right to, and all your feelings are valid at that moment, but there's an option there. And it's like, how can I take the cards I'm dealt and make the best out of it? And I feel like that's exactly what you did. Like I seen you go straight into, you know, training for triathlons, Paralympics, everything. You're always training in some sort of machine. I don't know. He was like trying to show me all the different machines today, and I was like, I'm so confused. They don't look the same because one of them has the hands, and then one of them's like,
That's the
yeah, but I mean, like you went in full force, and even listening to you, you're just like I think my life is amazing, and it's, you know,
I think
you thought, like, you took away all the negatives and you were like, okay, what's positive? Like even today you were telling me, well, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So
No,
you know what I mean? Like you took positives, and even you were saying, because I was like, well, how did it affect your relationships? What was your answer?
I actually think I was, no, how do I say this? I think I just got, I got more women from my wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, I don't know why. It must be something about the wheels, whether I've got nice wheels or something.
Yeah. No, I think it's the confidence.
Yeah, it's a confidence, but like I'm just another person. It's like, yeah, obviously I'll probably stand out on a night out because I'm in a wheelchair, but I'm still like a normal person.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether that's what like the public view is like, oh, that's amazing that he's out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I understand that because not everybody will see somebody out in a wheelchair every weekend or every night and every bar they go in or every restaurant they go in or down at the beach. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to do some things back in the UK, in my hometown. And I know that there must be loads of people in my local town or local area that are young, have a spinal injury, in a wheelchair, but don't get out.
Yeah.
And whenever I go out, whether it's on a night out for something to eat, just to push around, to go shopping, don't see them.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Well, you're on the podcast to tell them to like come out and get out. No, but if I was to tell you, if someone like came towards hardship in their life, and it could be anything, not just an accident or an injury, but like a breakup, like losing their job, like these massive things, we can sit there and we can dwell on it. Like, what is your advice to someone who, you know, is going through something like that? Because you really came out with like this attitude and this gratitude attitude, and was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously everybody deals with things way differently. Not everybody deals with things the same way. And I think I feel like I've almost just got a fuck it attitude of like, it's happened. Certainly if I can't control things. Mm-hmm. But then even when I can control things, it's like, oh, it's happened now.
Yeah.
Like, I can't turn the clock back. Like I could have not dived into that pool.
Exactly. And you could dwell on
But
that moment. And it's another thing to have the awareness as well of, even like someone today, me and you were at the pool and someone dived into the fucking rock pool. Yeah. And then you were like, fucking hell.
It's a wheelchair up there if you need it.
Yeah, I know, that's what he said. And I was just like, it's so true, because this guy literally went into a rock pool and it was shallow and there was rocks at the bottom, and he didn't just jump, he literally dived. And this is the importance of like sharing the awareness of
it can happen
a
so
simple
easily.
thing that you did that you thought would never affect you in this way.
But I think if I was like to give any advice, I mean, I always kind of look at it as though there's probably somebody out there in a worse position than me. I know it's like not nice to say, but
yeah, but that's like like a way of thinking. It's just like counting your own blessings.
Yeah,
basically.
and I think there's so much. And this is again something I've taken from my accident, my life morals, I would say, and like life. I don't even know what I would call it. It's like life choices and how I feel like my life should be. Like it's completely changed. I was so driven by having a really, really good job, earning money, having a nice car, having a nice house. Obviously, I still want having a nice car, a nice house, but not to like the extent that I wanted.
Yeah.
And I feel very much just like there's so much. Your life can change just like that so fast, and my life did. From there, I almost realised like, God, there's so much more to life than just being able to go. And for me, to my life, I thought there was so much more than just going and getting a job and sitting in an office. And I mean, I probably could have done different things with the job that I wanted to do, probably not just sit in an office all the time. But what I'm doing, I absolutely love what I do now.
Yeah.
And I get to travel the world, meet so many new different people, just experience like life. And I think a lot of people do take it for granted. Certainly, I think I took it for granted. I know I was quite young, but I think I took it for granted a little bit.
And then it even puts life into perspective. Like, as you said, do you know when you're younger and you want like the nice car, the nice house, you do want to be the best of the best to show everyone you're the best of the best. But when something traumatic like that happens, like even when someone has a death in the family or all these things make you realize that life is short, life is for living, and life is for like the little things.
Yeah, and for sure, like I would say, certainly for someone who suffered a spinal cord injury or any sort of like injury that's changed their life, there's still so many things out there that you can go and do.
Yeah.
Like my spinal unit opened up a lot of doors to me for like what sports I could get into, but then there are still more doors for you to still open.
Yeah.
When you go outside, you've just got to search and find the right places, which could be made easier, which is what I want to try and do.
How can we do that?
I don't know really. I've got different ideas of. I've always said that I think certainly from when I go out for a food shop, or go out just out in public, like a lot of kids just like look and stare, and I don't mind them doing it. I don't mind people staring at or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me. But when I've been in supermarkets and kids have come up to me and spoken to me, like that's great because I'm educating them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they like touch the wheelchair and it's like, yeah, let them touch it. And the parents sometimes drag them away, but dragging them away almost
is like,
it insinuates to them like, no, could be like a bad thing. But what I would love to get into school, I would love to get into schools, primary schools or even secondary schools. You know, did you ever have PSHE or something like that, where you'd learn about sex education, all of the different bits about life?
Yeah, which was shit.
Yeah, it was crap.
We don't learn anything.
Yeah.
And it's mad because like even now I'm like, we didn't even learn.
Wear a condom, take a pill.
Yeah, even like like life things, like a mortgage. Learning about a mortgage would be great.
Yeah.
Like how to buy houses, how to build a business, like what's the difference between limited company and fucking all these things.
But then this is what I was kind of like with. I'd love to get into schools about teaching about disability.
Yeah.
Or like accidents, or because it's not just a spinal injury that you can have. Like you could lose a limb and different things like that, or lose your sight. And it doesn't just affect you. It can affect your friendship groups, which I've met people in hospital that have had an accident with their friends and they don't want anything to do with them anymore.
Yeah.
Because they've had an accident and they're different.
Yeah.
But they're still that same person. But yeah, it doesn't just affect you, your friends, your family, all your whole network that you've got around you. And I was quite fortunate that all my mates that I had before are still all my mates now. But I would love to get it into schools because it teaches the kids when they grow up, and then it's also when they grow up, they've learnt about it.
Yeah, so then it's not like they don't feel that they know exactly what to say.
Because it can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And it can change it. Like the parents have got to adapt. If their child has an accident, my parents had to adapt.
Yeah, and how was that?
Well, I think whenever they came to visit me, they were always put on a strong face just for me.
Yeah.
But I know that it did affect them quite a lot, obviously, when they go home, and obviously I was still left in hospital and things like that. But they've spoken to me a little bit about it, but I've only ever kind of really seen how much it affects them when I've done like videos for Spinal Injuries Association, when they obviously interview my parents away from me.
Yeah.
And then you see how much like emotionally it affects them. But then I don't really know how much emotionally it drained them, you know, for that whole period of time. And also I couldn't imagine getting a phone call at whatever time in the morning from one of my son's mates saying, oh, by the way, we're on holiday. Yeah, your son's had a pretty bad accident. And then what do? You've obviously...
Yeah. And like their mindset as well probably went to the worst. You know what I mean? And it's good to look at if anyone is listening to this or anyone that's maybe could be in this position, that like how happy you are because of the mindset that you produced along with, you know, everything that came along with it. You know what I mean? So it's not just because sometimes it might have thought to them, oh my God, this is terrible. But when in fact, like, you're living your best life right now.
Yeah, there's so much you can achieve and do. And like the world's just like progressing all the time with like technology and adaptions and what we can do. And it's just like you've got to go out there and find it and make the most of it yourself.
Yeah.
And like that just goes for everybody, not just
for sure.
me or anyone with a spinal cord injury or a wheelchair user. Like it goes for anybody.
Yeah. And then we've hit the athlete. You're officially a very good athlete by the sounds of it. Hitting up the Paralympics this year, manifesting.
Hopefully.
And many triathlons. So this sort of comes with when you go into your rehab center or whatever, they tell you all the different things that you can do. Like, it's mad. I didn't even know that they would teach you how to cook and like, that's
they
crazy.
do everything because they need to set you up for going out back into the real world, and it's going to be a different life.
Yeah.
But yeah, sport was obviously because you'd go down and you'd do your physiotherapy and you'd do your little gym sessions, and then there'd be activities put on of all different sports, and they had like little hand cycles that attached to like wheelchairs and wheelchair table tennis, all sorts of different things. But I mean, I think when I remember just being led in my bed one day and I was just watching like Paralympic skiing, the sit skiing, and I wanted to get back into skiing because I'd just started going away on lads' holidays and stuff. And we'd always go away with my family, so I wanted to be able to have that independence to still do that. And so that was very important to me. And when I came out of hospital, that was like my first goal. I want to be able to ski.
Okay. So
I can do holidays with my friends and I can do holidays with my parents again. That's what I wanted to do. I think I had to leave it like... I think originally I was supposed to leave it longer than I did, but I was just so determined to do it. And I knew all my mates had just booked a ski holiday.
Right.
So my mum paid for me to go to Poland to learn with this specialist coach. So my goal was I need to come back from there fully independent. I can get on and off a lift myself. If I fall over, I can get up myself. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I wanted to be able to do those two things because those are the two most important things, really. And I don't want to rely on my mates to flipping put me on a chairlift, pick me up all the time, do you know, if I fall over. So those were the two main things I wanted to do. And I wanted to be able to come home and book onto that ski holiday and go with them. And I did that. And when that instructor said, yeah, I'm happy for you to do that, it was like the best feeling ever.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I got home, there's one of my other mates who was with me when I had my accident and he hadn't booked on. So I was like, right, I can go. Where we going? So we packed up my little Mini and we did a road trip. The other guys flew and we road tripped. It was great. And it was such like a happy moment for me to like still be able to go on holiday with all my mates and still be able to ski with them and keep up with them and do all that. And it was just like, yeah, I've had a pretty bad accident, but it's not stopped me doing anything. And
it just shows like those little moments of like accomplishment. You know,
it's always a small thing, but it's a massive thing at the same time.
Yeah. And you know, like I always, you know, that like in all the self-development books, it always tells you like the end goal. It's never about the end goal. It's all these like mini accomplishments on the journey. And if you get to the end goal and you haven't been true to yourself and done all those little accomplishments, it's never the same.
Yeah. I think that was like another thing. So my goal that didn't just stop there with skiing, it like then progressed.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, well, I want to get to Winter Paralympics now.
Yeah.
So I then kind of like just started like going to the Chill Factor in Manchester, trying to like learn how to ski race. And I mean, it's not a massive slope. I mean, you go skiing in Manchester, like, you can't really do an awful lot, but it was the best thing that was available to me, like week in, week out. So I tried there, and then I got asked by the British para snow sports team to like hopefully go through their like talent program and stuff. And I went away on a few trips with them, did a few races and stuff. But then to progress to like the next level, you almost need like an endless bank account because there wasn't a lot of funding there through it. And like anybody who knows, skiing holidays aren't cheap. But when you've got to kind of like be there all the time, like for a season, you pay for accommodation. Like you don't just have one set of skis, you've got to have two sets of each discipline, each skis for each discipline. So I think there's like four or five disciplines. So you've got to have 8 or 10 sets of skis, which can be expensive. And then you travel across like around the globe being able to do it. So it just, and the training just wasn't as accessible, which was a shame because that sport just gives me so much adrenaline. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
So that's not what you're doing now at the moment?
No, that's not what I'm doing now. So from there, I wanted to be able to do something I could just hop out my front door and do and train for, and almost be a little bit more realistic for the accomplishments that I wanted. So, but I didn't just think, oh, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go and do triathlon. I just fell into it.
Yeah.
I had thought about hand cycling, but I've just fell into triathlon. I was doing like 10Ks and half marathons, did Tough Mudder, like all in my day chair, with friends, with my dad. And I did a triathlon with like one of my best mates and my dad. And I didn't have any equipment. I just had a wetsuit and I did the bike section in that, which I don't know what distance we did at the time, but I did it in that and then the run section in it too. And I just loved like how hard it was, which was weird. And then I just got in touch with British Triathlon via email asking if there was any local clubs to where I live that could like accommodate me and have like equipment that I could use. But then I got invited to Loughborough University for a talent ID weekend, and then from there they did all sorts of different testing across the different disciplines, and they could see potential in me, so they took me on, and here I am.
Amazing. So it's like your dream job, really?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's exercise. I love it. It's sport. I love that, and I get to go to some amazing places and meet amazing people. And I love that. So, and
then with this triathlete stuff, is this what's leading into the Paralympics? Like, what is it that you're doing at the Paralympics?
So hopefully goes to the Paralympics in Paris in 2024 to do triathlon. Yeah, which has been my goal since I pretty much started it.
Yeah, it's happening.
I want to get to Paris. Yeah, it is happening.
It's happening.
It's happening. I just want to. My goal is I want to be on the start line in Paris. I just want to get there, and then when I get there, I want to enjoy it and just obviously do as well as I can. But then when LA comes around in 2028, that's when I want to be like, this is the guy that's going to be talked about. That's what I want. Yeah. That's what I want to be achieving. It's a long journey and I'm willing to kind of wait for it and just keep working at it. So it's not just going to happen overnight.
Yeah. And what do you think has been the biggest challenges through, the Paralympics, and, how do you get through those challenges? Like, I mean, triathlons are not fucking easy. I mean, it's a mental battle.
It is. And
like, you can't even have any music. Like, you have to just think about the pain.
Yeah, no.
Do you know what I mean? Because you have to like go in the water.
Kind of like pedaling, going, oh, this hurts. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's exactly like you said. It's a massive mental game.
Yeah.
Like I spend a lot of time training on my own, but I don't mind it. I enjoy it. But some days you do wake up and you think, can I be really arsed to go and sit on my bike for like 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours, or can I really be asked to put myself through this horrible session, or can I be bothered to get up at 4:30 in the morning to go swimming for an hour and a half like I do now?
Yeah.
But
what motivates you? Like, what is come on, give us some, we need it.
I think what motivates me is how I know like all my friends and family are over the moon with kind of like what I do now and what I've achieved, but I want it to almost be able to give back to them.
Yeah.
As like, I've done all this for like, not just for myself, but I've done it for you guys as well. And to show you that like, I'm still me and I can still achieve great things and things like that. And I don't know, there's a lot.
Can I ask you a few questions to help you with your Paralympics goal?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so this is what I do, right? If I want a goal, like for example, like my company or whatever, I say like, I'm not asking you to do 100 reasons, but I'll do like 100 reasons why I want something, and it hits all this positive energy behind the goal. Because you can say, oh, I want to win. But if you think about if you win or you're at that stage in 2028, what is behind you and what you can change for the disabled community. Because what you said there before is lack of funding for the actual sport that you wanted to do. So all these things you could think about, you know what I mean? All this positive energy behind one goal, because it's not just one goal, because if you get to that point, you're going to be desired, you're going to be like sponsored, you're going to bring more light to you, and then essentially be able to help in so many ways.
Okay, I think some of it's probably just to try and change the view of like Paralympic sport and disability sport, if you want to say that, or adaptive sport, and how like amazing some of the athletes are. Like, if people haven't watched the Paralympics, the way people do things without like the function of some form of the body or not having certain limbs there, it's amazing like what people can do. And it's surprising that people don't want to back it a little bit more and showcase it more.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that's not the case. It's starting to improve, but it could still be better. And I think also there's a lot of younger kids out there who have whether they've been born with a disability that puts them in a wheelchair or something, and they're not really exposed to any sport at the moment. It's to like show them that you can like get out and you can achieve something great with your life. If you don't think you can, you definitely can. Yeah. Because there's so much out there for you to do. Yeah. And it's almost just like, it's a bit of a, I'm quite ruthless when I say it, but it's just like putting a rocket up their arse and saying, come on,
let's
like
rock.
You can do it. But there's not just me, but there's so many other Paralympians that put out all this like energy to get people to do things and want to improve it. But like people have got to want to do it themselves as well and have that mentality to be able to do it. But not everybody wants to be a Paralympian. Like that's another thing. So when you kind of like, wherever you go and you're in a like I found when you're in a wheelchair, it's like, oh, so do you see you in the Paralympics?
Oh, really?
Like without even speaking to you, see you in the Paralympics. And I know that happens to other people, but not everybody in a wheelchair like wants to be in the Paralympics. Yeah. Everybody has obviously all different life aspirations and stuff like that. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, there's so many like different goals I think that I want to achieve, even like within the fitness industry. I think that could change massively. I think that's so, I don't think it's diverse at all. It could be way more diverse than it is. Yeah. And like, I know a few brands have like one or two like athletes with like disabilities, but like it could be so much better. Yeah, definitely. And I think it could be so much better for their brand as well.
Yeah, highly agree.
Like some of these people who have the disabilities who are doing these amazing things, yeah, you've got them on board, but like you need to tell the story more. Like they will influence a lot of people outside of the disability community as well, of just like how they're getting on with their life and different things. And it will influence a lot of people, probably more so with disabilities, to get them into the fitness industry.
Yeah, for sure.
And get them out and get them into gyms and buying your products.
Yeah. And like, it's not even about like other people, like you influence me, your story influences me, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that should be shouted, that should be represented, and that should be, you know what I mean? And I definitely think there's a massive improvement to be made as well.
Because I've got my personal training like qualifications and stuff, and I wasn't really doing an awful lot with it. I just wanted to do it to understand training a little bit more and the different ways to train and all that kind of stuff. But then after like I went to a few networking events, and after speaking to people that have clients that like have been into gyms, and personal trainers like won't touch them. These are like people with spinal cord injuries. Okay. People have gone into the gym in the wheelchair and personal trainers won't touch them. And it's like, well, why? And first thing, when I first heard it, I was like, it's so easy, because if you went into a gym to a personal trainer and you were like, right, I want to train, but my leg's hurting today. So they're not just going to go, right, well, we're going to go and train legs even though your leg's hurting, are you? You adapt like the session to what they can and what they can't do. You find out what they can and what they can't do. So when I was like being told this, I was thinking, God, why don't people want to do it? Like they're literally coming to you and giving you the money. Yeah. To have your like profession like put onto them. Yeah. For them to teach them something. But then I also took a step back and I thought, well, I do understand why, because they might not really know how to say the right thing. And yes, exactly. I can understand that massively. And also that client in the wheelchair might not be able to or want to open up as much, because if they say something to this person, they might think, oh, well, what are they thinking about me? Things like that, which isn't what you want. So I've like recently started I've got like the accessible coach, and I want to open up my personal training to people in like wheelchairs and with disabilities. And I feel like people could relate to me a little bit more because I've gone through something similar. And that's like another stepping stone for me wanting to kind of change all this kind of view within the fitness industry and stuff. So there's things there that could be changed, perceptions could be changed. So there's a lot that could be done. Yeah.
And before, we're talking like 46 minutes here. So before we go, like what can we do as a society to help the disabled society as well? Like, and you know, what we were talking about before is in like
things what to say, not to say.
Yeah. Because he was like, you know what I mean? It's hard. And you were telling me a few things. I was like, okay, here we are. So what things to say, things not to say. How can we support the disabled community?
So, like, the first thing I'll say is
education.
If you see a wheelchair user going down the street, don't go, oh, there's a speed limit down here. I hate it. It's shocking. Or
People say that.
People
to you?
say that. No. Even when like there's two of us that are in a chair, like, oh, are you racing? Who's winning? Like, just don't say it.
Oh my God.
Like,
I actually can't believe people say that.
I've never turned around to anybody and like told them to do one, but like
I thought you were joking there.
No, people say it. And like, even when like you go on a night out and it's like, oh, you drink driving, like, come on. Yeah,
what?
it's fun. I understand.
can't believe people say that.
People will find it funny, but like, it's not the first time I've heard it or any of us have heard it.
I actually can't believe people do say that though.
It's annoying.
So that's offensive. We don't want to hear any of that.
Some people might take it in a different way. I don't like it. It doesn't make it.
So what do you say? You just feel like,
I just don't say it.
Just
like,
say nothing.
They're just person.
No, but I mean, like, you just don't say anything back. You just
I
stand
don't.
up for yourself.
It depends if I'm like really pissed or not.
Yeah, you could just be like, that's offensive.
Yeah, but then again,
sometimes you have to step up.
It's an educational opportunity which I should probably take.
Yeah.
Own.
For sure.
But what else is that? I mean, a lot of people ask me like if I need help for certain things and like pushing up hills and stuff like that. A lot of us are very stubborn. Like we want our independence, but like I think it is good that people do ask.
Right. Okay.
And it's nice. And like obviously I go into swimming pools all the time. I go into gyms all the time, and people always ask if I want help. And like I don't need help. I'm fine. And I sometimes like think, like, why are you asking me? I don't need help. But they're not to know that.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough.
Because then somebody else could possibly need help at a different...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that is a good thing. But like approaching somebody, I don't mind this, but if someone literally, like I said to you earlier, I had it in someone in the pool early this morning, and I was just in the little coffee shop in there and never met this person. Well, obviously never met this person. I've only been in the country a week.
Yeah.
And they just went, why are you in a wheelchair? And I told them.
Yeah.
And they were interested. And I sat there for like another 35 minutes to an hour just chatting to them about all sorts of stuff, like what I do, how I had my accident, everything.
Yeah.
But that was like, for me, I don't personally mind if somebody just asks me like out of the blue.
Right, okay.
Because I see that as an educational opportunity. Certainly if they're not surrounded by it.
Yeah.
But I know other people do get offended by it, and if it's asked in the wrong way, yeah, I understand it, but I think it's good personally if people ask.
Yeah.
Certainly in a world now where everything has to be equal or wants to be equal, or we're trying to make everything equal. Like the only way, certainly with disabilities or with a wheelchair user, like the only way you're going to change that, certainly if that person who's wanting to find out or to make change doesn't know, it's the only way you're going to do it by telling them.
Yeah.
They can't just like, I know people do, just make a decision thinking, yeah, that's fine. But to be able to speak to them and tell them like, why have I had your accident, what you can do, what you can't do, that's what they need to know. And that's the only way things will change.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even what you said, it's about like telling someone like that's offensive. Let's just say your friend is saying those comments, or it's just turn around and be like, no. And it's a step up. Like I feel like this generation in the last few years, like people have to step up and say, no, you can't say that anymore. It's offensive. Like we all know, like even our older generations, our grannies and grandas say things, and they're very different mindset, and we have to be the people to be like, that's actually
it's a generation
wrong.
Change, and the world to what our grandparents lived in to now is so different.
Yeah,
like across the whole board, it's so different. And like even all the like LGBTQ plus stuff, like that wasn't really around when.
Yeah,
the whole world is just changing and wanting to become more diverse. And I also sometimes feel like with disabilities almost like left behind a bit and not really talked about. So I think it could be talked about a lot more and
definitely
put into like everyday view of people to somehow to learn.
Yeah. Well, you're doing an amazing job as an advocate.
I try.
You try.
I try.
You're great. And like, if anyone wants to know where you are, what you're doing right now, we're in Australia right now. You've got a race in Tasmania, and then
I'm in Australia now. Yeah, like you said, race in Tasmania, which is a World Series event, and then the Paralympic qualification starts in June. Well, for me, it starts in June with the European Championships, which is in Madrid. So I'll be here till probably like May, beginning of May. I'm going to spend some time with my family that live out here, which I've not seen for a long time.
Yeah.
Meet new people, explore the place, and then still training in between all that. And then head back, and I'll be racing in Europe through till probably September.
Yeah.
And then potentially looking at coming back out here for then it'll be like my winter training camp leading into the Paralympic year. So
amazing. So I usually ask this question at the end of some podcasts. I sometimes forget it, but it's usually like 2 questions. We've kind of talked about your goal, but what is something you like about yourself?
I quite like how, and I find it weird how I do like this, like getting over things and I can just move on and like crack on with my life and make sure I'm happy and enjoy my life whilst I can instead of really worrying about things.
Yeah, you're the king of acceptance.
Yeah.
Acceptance, and like I feel like you're a very secure person, you're confident in your own skin, and you're very accepting, and
yeah,
you know what I mean? You're not a dweller, you're a doer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A yes person.
Yeah. And then your goal for 2023?
My goal for 2023 is, so there's my biggest goal is to put myself in a decent position in the Paralympic rankings for Paris next year, so that I can go into next season like in a strong position.
Yeah.
That's my main goal. And just enjoy life.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just something that I always kind of like want to achieve. And yeah.
Okay, where can we find you on Instagram?
Instagram is just at Josh Landmann. Pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Or if you want to follow my the Accessible Coach page, it's literally just the Accessible Coach.
There you go. So catch you on Instagram. All your stuff's over there.
Yeah.
Always doing very motivating stuff, motivating me, motivating everyone on there. So check them out. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
No, thanks for having me.
It took us like a good year and a half,
again.
2 years.
Oh gosh, yeah, it has.
I know, we've been trying to do it
finally.
For ages. I know.
I had to come to Australia to do it.
I know, yeah. That's what it was. Flew him in for the Sinead Says. Fuck Ellen DeGeneres.
Special guest.
Okay, and thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe and let us know what you think in the reviews. Bye now.